Alright guys, in today's video I'm going to go over some decks I think would be a good idea to bring to the 5-win challenge. 5-win streak challenge rather. So I'm just going to refer to my own decks and also Pokézone in this video just because they already, it's just a good website. They've got some, deck lists on there that I don't have currently built at the moment. And if there's things that I think you can change, or maybe some things, different variants of the decks, I'll point that out as well. So let's take a look at Pokézone real quick and see what they've got going. Okay, so this is a Pikachu deck that did well maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago in a tournament. I think it actually won or topped several tournaments. We all know Pikachu. There's a million ways to play Pikachu right now. This one was using the paralysis and the striking with the Zebstrika on the bench to just steal some wins. But a common thing you'll see in most Pikachu decks that do really well is you got 2 Pikachu EXs and 2 Zapdos EXs, and that's for a bunch of different reasons. Basically, the Peck on Zapdos is really good. Zapdos takes a lot of damage, is able to retreat for 1 energy or 1 X speed, and a Peck in the mirror match is really good because if you then pair it with a Geo on an attack with a Pikachu, you can knock out an opposing Pikachu. So I would recommend, no matter what Pikachu variant you end up using, make sure that you have the 2 Zapdos EX in there if you have them. If you don't have them, maybe you would run something like this, maybe with Electrode, maybe you'd have a Raichu instead. You got to do what you can, but hopefully I cover so many decks in this video that you find something that you can use. I'm going to show you my Raichu variant whenever we get to my decks in a second. Okay, we all know it, we all hate it, we all love it. It's MEWTWO. Not much to be said. There are some decks that have recently tried to incorporate the single point MEWTWO in there. Again, that's another use case for the Peck and Geo Pikachu combo, basically for anything with 120 health, right? But in my opinion, I think this version's the best. You'll see some people that try and run 1 Ralts. I don't like that because it essentially, if you just don't find the Ralts, you just, essentially you're going to lose. While it does make it to where you start with MEWTWO almost always, it's just not worth it. And also it can leave you open to getting Sabrinaed. If you do set up like the 1 Ralts, then you get Sabrinaed and then you have no other means of trying to build up another Gardevoir. So I think a 2 MEWTWO and 2 Gardevoir full line is perfect. I actually really like the Pokézone list minus maybe the red card. I think I'd take out the red card and I would just play a second Sabrina. Other than that, I really wouldn't touch this list. The 2 XPs is really good for body blocking with the MEWTWO and then retreating into potentially another MEWTWO. If you do decide to play this deck, one thing you need to realize is that there's a lot of games where you need to just sacrifice your Ralts, sacrifice your Kirlia, sacrifice your Gardevoirs. The 2 Geos, you'll see that a lot, and just be aware of it whenever you're playing against other MEWTWO decks, because a lot of Pokemon have the 60 HP, 20 attack, base stat line kind of deal, and Geo answers that. And then also double Geo into a Pikachu can also knock out a Pikachu. So it's actually pretty relevant. Not to mention Psydrive plus Geo knocks out a Dragonite, knocks out Executor. And so it just breaks these certain thresholds that are actually very relevant. So we know this deck. There's not much else to say here. We can move on. Okay, now here we have the classic STARMIE Articuno deck. It's very solid. The problem is a lot of people might not have either 2 STARMIE or 2 Articuno, just depending on how long they've been playing. But a lot of us, have access to this deck. And basically, if you play the 18 trainer version of Articuno, you end up having to heavily rely on how good your Misty Flips are, right? We don't want that. STARMIE just makes the deck more consistent and, in my opinion, more powerful. So there's really no reason not to incorporate it if you don't have it. The one thing I don't like about this list, however, is the 2 red card. I think 1 red card is okay. But I actually do enjoy this deck with X speeds in it. And that's just because sometimes you need to get the Articuno out of the way. If I open up, let's say I'm going second, but I started with Articuno, and I get into my Staryu, maybe with a Pokeball or something going second. So I didn't have it on my bench already. I wasn't able to put it in my active spot. It's really important to be able to pivot this Articuno out of the way and just play STARMIE beats. You don't want to be trapped with the Articuno in the active spot. So even though STARMIE has a free retreat, I still don't think it's a bad idea to have 1 or 2 X speeds in here. I would probably just completely cut the red card for X speeds, or at least do a 1-in-1 split. Other than that, the deck list is fine. We all know this deck. It's been around forever. We can just move on. Okay, this is the most bare bones, like basic Charizard deck, and what I would change about this is, again, I would take out the red cards and I would put in 2 fossil Pokemon. And so what the fossil Pokemon allow you to do is have the Moltres in the active spot, have the Charmander in the back that you're trying to build up, the fossil in the back. So if your opponent Sabrina's you just give them the fossil, and then they can do whatever they want. They can knock it out, they can choose not to, and then you discard it, and then you just keep doing what you were doing. Not having the fossils just makes you way too vulnerable to the Sabrina plays. Just makes you way too vulnerable, and the fossils don't change your Pokeball math, and they don't change your starting hand math. And it's really, really, really important in this deck to start with Moltres, and that's another reason why we run the double X speed, because if you start with Charmander in your active spot, but then you find a Moltres through a research or Pokeball, then you X speed the Charmander out of the way and bring up the Moltres. If you're going to play this deck, a tip I have for you is build up the Moltres. Don't be the scrub that doesn't ever attach energy to the Moltres after you attach the first one. Attach the energy to the Moltres, especially in the mirror match, and attack their Moltres, because if you can take down their Moltres first, then whenever they bring in their Charizard to take out your Moltres, you bring in your Charizard to take out their Charizard and you win the game. So super, super important to attach energy to the Moltres. Don't just put 1 on the Moltres and then use its Inferno Dance, and then, you know, attach to the bench. It's just not worth it. Don't do that. So yeah, and then another thing, the double potion really isn't too bad, because in the mirror match, like I stated, if you get into the Moltres attack battle, if you have a potion, then you basically put them back a turn. So then it becomes who got 3 energy on Moltres first, and or who has more potions. So you could take out a potion and a red card for 2 fossils, or you could take out 2 red cards for fossils. Totally up to you, but definitely make that change. Okay, in here we have the basically the red deck wins deck of the game. We have some Blaine here. I like the list. The only thing I would change, again, I'd take out a red card. I'd put in a Geo. There's a lot of Pokemon that have 100 HP. You got Kangaskhan that runs around. You've got Dragonair. Yeah, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, but there's a lot of threshold breakers. For instance, like the Rapidash on a Bulbasaur, for example, with a Geo is 70. You know, so there's all these little interactions. I think I would just run the 2 Geo. I don't think the red card slot is worth it. I don't think you're trying to manipulate your opponent's hand. I think you're just trying to beat them as quickly as possible by beating their face in, hopefully with Ninetales and Blaine. Ninetales and Blaine is obviously the main one, because that knocks out Pikachu in 1 hit. It's what makes the deck viable at all, in my opinion, because there's not that many grass decks running around. So yeah, I think I would just change this to 2 Geo, and I would keep the rest the same. Okay, that's it for Pokézone. I'm not really comfortable showing you guys any other decks. I think they'd kind of just be a waste of time, with maybe the exception of the Marowak deck, which I'm going to show you on my account. So this is the Pikachu Raichu variant. I think it's the best deck in the game. I'm currently been testing this one of single point Zapdos for a while, just because it feels really bad to have a Pikachu deck and then not have a full bench. It just kind of ruining Pikachu's effectiveness. So I was trying the one Zapdos because it can take a hit, I can X-speed it away and move on about my business. Also, it's not a bad secondary attacker, but it has been doing well even just sitting on the bench and making my Pikachu attack for more damage, but it's totally not necessary. So basically you run 4 Pikachus, and the 2 Zapdos EX, which I mentioned before, is really good for the Peck reasons. X-speed is 100% essential and you need it. 2 Pokeball to research for the consistency, 2 Geos and 2 Sabrina. Super nice. You could cut one of those 4 for a second Surge if you wanted to. I don't think it's necessary at all. I think I think Giovanni and Sabrina are much better most of the time. But yeah, so the main idea with this deck is to body block with one of the Zapdoses, if you're going first, that is. Switch it out, bring in the Pikachu, hit for a bunch of damage. After the Pikachu goes down, or before, I guess right before it goes down, you'd like to transfer all your energy to the Raichu and get the last attack. Sometimes you just build up the Raichu on the bench after you do your first Pikachu EX, and then that plus Geo can knock out like a Mewtwo, for example. I've got an entire deck guide on this deck, It's maybe like a week and a half old at this point, but I show a chart in that video where it just shows how many Pokemon Raichu one-shots that Pikachu doesn't, like Marowak, Wigglytuff, Weezing, all these different things, and it really changes the coverage of Pikachu. So definitely give this list a try if you're trying to get 5 wins quickly. Another deck I wanted to show you guys, maybe you have Starmies and you don't have Articunos. This is my go-to deck on stream. I play it, basically I open it almost every stream with this deck. It's a lot of fun, it's very strong, and it's basically just Tentacruel Starmie, and the idea behind the deck is just having 2 energy Pokemon that attack for a lot of damage. The poison on the Tentacruel is actually really good against like a Mewtwo, for example. If they start out with a Mewtwo in the active spot and you poison it, it makes it to where their double potion lines don't work anywhere near as well if you poison the Mewtwo, and usually they have to shuffle around, which robs them of their tempo, which you know, is good. Makes all the decks less good, right? It also has more HP than Golduck, even though it doesn't attack for as much damage outright. So Golduck's better into like a bird, like a Moltres or an Articuno, but I think Tentacruel is better in basically every other situation. It does have one more retreat cost, but that's generally not a big deal considering we run X-Speeds and Misties, which can be pseudo X-Speed. And I run the 1 Articuno because you've got 2 Pokemon that only need 2 energy, and so a lot of times you're set up and you just need a way to get value out of the Misty, and you can just target the Articuno and then maybe actually get some good Misty value. Then you got the 2 Pokeballs, 2 research for consistency, of course the Misty, so you can cheese the games, the 1 Geo, and the double Sabrina. But yeah, I highly recommend this deck. I think it's very good if you don't have double Articuno, but you have some Starmies. And if you do have the Articuno, I play this over the Articuno Starmie version, because starting with Articuno in the active spot without a Misty, going first is a death sentence a lot of the time. So if you haven't tried this deck before, give it a shot. I want to make sure I cover some single point decks in this video. Alakazam is definitely a deck that can get you the 5 wins. The Alakazam math into the entire meta is great for Alakazam. Knocks out Pikachu, for example. Will knock out Starmie and Venusaur with a Geo assistance. Very strong. You know, there's not much to say here. He's just a single point Pokemon that one-shots the entire meta and then some. So really strong. You just want to use your Weezing here to stall, set up, deal a little bit of damage, Koga bounce, reset up, and the rest is just you know, potions, Pokeball research for consistency, double Geo, double Sabrina. You need the double Geo in this deck though. Like I said, you need it to knock out Venusaur, you need it to knock out Starmie, which are important thresholds. But it's definitely a deck worth considering, you know, if you want to run something different and maybe you don't have the Exceeds. This isn't Yu-Gi-Oh! The EXs you need. Another deck we have here is the Marowak deck. You can throw Marowak in combination with anything. This is just a Dugtrio deck I was playing on stream just because I wanted every single game to be coin flip dependent. But you can pair it with Machamp. You could pair it with Sandslash. Honestly, Sandslash is probably the best consistent bet, especially there's probably going to be a lot of Pikachu running around. And, you know, it's going to be coin flippy. But if you're running into a lot of Pikachu and you don't have any other decks to play, it may or may not be a bad choice. I'm not sure if you can get 5 wins with it, but it's just another option. You got Dragonite, you're going to run into it most likely. You know, you do the Weezing stalling, the Koga bouncing, you set up the Dragonite, you attack big. That's it. I like the 2x speeds because sometimes you don't have Koga, but you have 1 energy on the Weezing from just some point of attachment, and then you can pivot out of the way for the Dragonite as soon as it's ready, so that's very important. And you got your consistency cards and your Koga. It's very bare bones, but it can win you games. If I were going to run a Venusaur deck, I think in this event I would be running the Kangaskhan version. The Executor version is just... when you have a stage 2 Pokemon in your deck, you need to make sure the rest of it's very consistent. It's really hard to have a deck be really good with a stage 1 and a stage 2 Pokemon. Pikachu doesn't have that. Mewtwo doesn't have that. Articuno Starmie decks don't have that. That's for a reason. It's because there's not as much variability. So you just run 2 lines of Venusaur, the Kangaskhan. It's great for soaking up damage, great for maybe cheesing a knockout, which is fantastic. 2 potion, 2x speed, 2 Pokeball, 2 research, 2 Erica, and then a 1-in-1 split of Sabrina and Geo. This is the one I would recommend. When you play this deck, make sure that you don't put how do I say, more than 2 basics ever out, because then you leave yourself open to Sabrina. Like, you don't want to go through all the trouble of setting this up, and then your opponent, Sabrina, is the Pokemon at the end of it all, and just gets the win anyway. You want to make them have to go through all this HP. So just don't make that mistake, and you'll be okay. Pokézone actually has one more deck that I think you could play. I don't recommend it, but maybe you have no other choice. Maybe you're seeing a bunch of Mewtwo. Then this would be a good pick. But it's just WEEZING, ARBOK. Very consistent. Lots of high damage. A lot of survivability with the Kogas and the potions. You know, like I said, picks on Mewtwo. Might not be a bad choice if you see a lot of Mewtwo or you have no other choice. But, you know, it's not great. You're probably going to lose to Pikachu. You're probably going to lose to the water decks, but it's definitely like a solid tier 2 deck, maybe like lower end of tier 2. But I just wanted to show it because it's another single point deck that has no EXs in there. But yeah, I think that'll do it for this little summation here. Hopefully some of that information helps you. Some of these deck lists helps you. If it does, please leave a like, leave a comment, post what deck maybe you got the 5 win streak with. And hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys soon.